Hello everyone, and welcome to Biopedia. February 12th is once again upon us, meaning that for the 7th time in this podcast's history, we will be celebrating Darwin Day by exploring a particular facet of the life and times of Charles Robert Darwin. This year, we will be examining Darwin's ancestry by means of a book published by H. Farnham Burke in 1888, called Pedigree of the Family of Darwin. This will allow us to discuss some notable people in Darwin's life, and generally is just a facet that hasn't been explored too often. So, let's get into it. We start our family tree with William Darwin, from Marton in the county of Lincoln. Now, I'm going to be referring to this William as William Darwin Sr, for reasons that will become apparent as we go through. Indeed, I will be using suffixes to distinguish people throughout this episode where applicable. Anyway, William Darwin Sr. died sometime before 1542, but that's all I really have on him. We don't even know who his wife was. What we do know is that William Sr. had two sons, William Darwin Jr. and John Darwin. John Darwin married a woman called Margaret of uncertain surname and had a will dated to the 18th of August 1542. However, we don't know about any children, and that's as much information as I have on him. When it comes to the eldest son, though, William Darwin Jr.'s wife is unknown, but his children are not. First up is William Darwin III, who we will return to in a moment. Then there is Henry Darwin, whose will dates to 1566. There are also Isabel, a Joan who married a Mr. Bellamy, an Anne, wife of Mr. Stowe, and an unknown daughter who married a certain Thomas Rayner and died before 1566. Let's now return to William Darwin III. Like his grandfather before him, and presumably his father, although this isn't specified in the tree I'm using, he lived in Marton. Based on the date of his will, he would have died in about 1580. He married a certain Elizabeth, who probably died in 1593, based on when her will was signed. Incidentally, from now on, if I don't have a death date, I'm going to use the date when the will was dated instead, just to keep things simple. The eldest son of William and Elizabeth was Rowland Darwin, also living in Marton. He also married an Elizabeth, but they had no children, and he died in 1588, being buried in Marton Church. Next up is Henry Darwin, or I suppose Henry Darwin II, if his uncle can be counted as the first. He wed a certain Anne Fox and had children of his own, William Darwin IV, John Darwin, Dorothy Darwin, and Anne Darwin. William IV's sons were John and Henry, and his daughters were Isabel and Elizabeth. Incidentally, I suppose you could call the previous two Johns I've just mentioned John Darwin II and his nephew John Darwin III, as otherwise it would get rather confusing, if it already isn't. But let's travel back up the tree to the generation of Rowland and Henry Darwin, sons of William Darwin III. This is because there were more siblings who are more directly ancestrally relevant to our focal figure. There was another daughter, Margaret, and the last son was Richard Darwin, who died in 1584. He wed a Margaret, and their children were, say it with me now, William Darwin V, Thomas Darwin, Rowland Darwin II, and Anne Darwin. I'm only going to focus on William Darwin V here, as otherwise the names and dates just get endlessly repetitive and confusing, so to that end I've trimmed the tree a little bit where applicable. William V married a woman called Miss Healy, who had previously been married before to a certain Thomas Small and had two children by him. William himself, by the way, was most likely born in about 1573 and died in the year 1644. His children included, altogether now, William Darwin VI, born on the 6th of June 1620 and died in around 1673 or 1674. His wedding to Anne Earl, the daughter of Erasmus Earl, came in 1653, and his only brother was Thomas Darwin, or maybe Thomas Darwin II? I'm starting to lose count of the numerals at this point, and I will admit I didn't write it out for every single name. Now, both William Darwin VI and the name of his father-in-law, Erasmus Earl, are noteworthy. William Darwin VI became the father of another Anne Darwin, predictably William Darwin VII, born in 1655, Erasmus Darwin, born in 1659, and hold on to the name Erasmus, John Darwin IV, born the 21st of April 1661 and died 27th of April the same year, and Francis Darwin, born the 31st of December 1669 and died 1693 based on the date of his will. Now, Anne Darwin did not have children, and Erasmus had a daughter Elizabeth, but as per usual, they are not our focal point. Instead, let's turn back to the eldest son, William Darwin VII. He only had 2 children we need to mention. The eldest, I wonder if you can guess, was called William Darwin VIII and was born on the 21st of June 1681 and baptised on July 4th the same year. He would die in 1670. His brother Robert Darwin was born on the 12th of August 1682. Now, this is mercifully the point at which I'm going to stop talking about people called William Darwin, because it is the branch with Robert Darwin in it that needs to be focused on. Robert married Elizabeth Hill, who was 20 years younger than him, on the 1st of January of either 1723 or 1724 in Balderton in Nottinghamshire. He would die in 1754, but his wife outlived him by more than 40 years until 1797. Their son William Alvey Darwin, and I'm not sure where this name Alvey comes from, but it comes back a few times, was born in 1726 and died in 1783. As I say, hold on to that name Alvey, it will be coming back. There were also Susanna, Anne, and Elizabeth Darwin. However, the man we are going to be focusing on principally is Erasmus Darwin, or I suppose technically Erasmus Darwin II. He was born on the 12th of December 1731 and lived until the 18th of April 1802. He was a prolific author, poet, and philosopher who was so prominent he once turned down an offer to be the physician to King George III of the United Kingdom himself. As I said, Erasmus Darwin, and thus the name Erasmus and its introduction into the tree, is noteworthy. Erasmus Darwin married twice, but I will only be examining the descendants of his first wife, Mary Howard. A son, Charles Darwin, was born in 1758. However, let me stop you there. This is not that Charles Darwin. Instead, this is one who died in 1778, so well before the publication of On the Origin of Species in 1859. The second son was Erasmus Darwin III, born in 1769 and died in 1799. Incidentally, in the pedigree I'm using as a source, he is explicitly referred to as Erasmus Darwin Jr., which is interesting given that it's not something you really see that often in a UK publication. Then there's William Alvey Darwin, the second, I suppose, named for his uncle, who lived for only 18 days in 1767. His sister Elizabeth also only lived a short while, born and died the same year in 1763. We then get Robert Waring Darwin, and I promise that this time we are close. He was born in 1766 and died in 1848. Robert Waring was also technically Robert Waring II because he was named for a brother of Erasmus Darwin, but that's not the point for our purposes. What is relevant is that his wife was Susanna, the daughter of the famous potter Josiah Wedgwood. Their eldest son was Erasmus Alvey Darwin. See, I said the name Alvey would come back. He was known as Uncle Raz to his nieces and nephews, and lived into the early 1880s. However, their second son was Charles Robert Darwin, born on the 12th of February 1809. And yes, this is the Charles Darwin. Finally, we have arrived. Now, this isn't the end of this pedigree from the 1880s. The tree obviously lists far more people than I've mentioned, and goes on for another 10 to 15 pages after the introduction of our Charles Darwin. However, those details will have to wait for a future episode, if indeed this is something you would be interested in. Otherwise, that brings us to the end of today's episode. As always, thank you all for listening. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions for future episodes, feel free to get in touch at the show's email address. Until next time, have a great week, everyone.